handbrakes packed up on the series for Dad. Handbrake access is really quite pleasingly easy on an early series, because you just remove the centre panel and there it is. That's the top of the transfer box. There's a transfer box there. That's the transfer box. That's the handbrake drum. And that's the handbrake mechanism over there. And when I pull the handbrake up, it moves, but it ain't doing a whole busted lot, is it? It's all... I've had this all apart recently as well. I might have to get the book and see if I can work out what on earth is going on. It doesn't seem to move. Right, the drum's moving. Ah! That lever doesn't move in and out of the drum. I suspect what's happened here is something's got knackered, because the whole bloody mechanism over here is all bent and twisted. Right, how are we going to address this? I think what we're going to do first of all, I can see adjustment spanner on the back of the drum. There's an adjuster down there. Let's see if we can get the handbrake mechanism first of all to persuade the drum to move, and then we'll adjust it. If that doesn't work, then I'm taking the drum off. I think what I'm going to have to do is undo all these nuts and bolts and work out what on earth is going wrong with this mechanism. So let me get it off to start with. Shit now. Basically, these things have threaded cotter pins, and they're both seized up solid, so I welded nuts either side of a fork, which I made up, and then did the same thing on buzz off. Oh, that was a B on this piece down there, so that fork. But what I'm getting now is this lever will not go in or out of the drum at all, so I suspect the mechanism inside the drum is seized up, which has caused it all to bend and mangle itself again. The other challenge I've got with this is that all of the threads have worn out, which is why I packed it out with a load of bigger nuts. I'm the biggest nut. And then on top of all that, the thread on this thing's knackered as well, so I might have to get a new, let's do some sort of relay. If I tip all those washers off there, get the thread on there, it's fucked. I might be able to just get the pin out and see what I can do with that. We'll see. But I think the next challenge is going to be getting this drum off. And naturally, it's not 1/2 inch. It's not 9/16. It's not 13. Or 14 might. Just about. No, it's rounding it. Right, it's going to have to be some sort of Whitworth socket size, which I haven't bloody got. I'm going to have to go through my hex-sided sockets and see if I can find one that roughly fits. But there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts, nuts, and then it looks like the drum might go that way. I might have to take the prop shaft off. I don't know yet. I shall consult with the manual. Right, manual. Right, 14 hex-sided seems to undo them. They're a really chunky Whitworth size. Interestingly, the whole drum then slides out over the prop shaft to give you access to all of the shoes and the mechanism and so forth. So, let's get drum off first of all. Right, got the brake adjuster to turn using my absolutely ancient 1,000-year-old Elora brake adjusting tool, which I probably have for my Ford Anglia, which was my very first car. Anti-clockwise loosens them off. You see it's turning nicely now. It was bloody solid. Still not much sign of that drum moving though. Bang. Yay! Sometimes when things won't shift, you ain't using a big enough hammer. I used a bigger hammer, and it's come off. So the drum's off. And now I can see the linings. And the linings are there, and as far as I can see, all the springs and everything are in place. I think what's happening is this mechanism on this side down here is the one that allows the shoes to move in and out, and I think it's just seized up solid. So what I'm going to have to do probably is go underneath now and see if I can work out how to get these shoes off, and then I can release the adjusting mechanism, because the shoes have got barely any wear on them. Is there anything holding the shoe in? No, it's just on a spring. They're just on a spring. So find out where the spring is and leave the little bastards out. I'll do them on this side, I think. Maybe with a pry bar we might just be able to do it. There we go, like that. Just like that. Oh, sort of like that. There we go. That's one shoe. Trouble is the spring's still attached to it. Oh, something just happened down here. No, I just think it was get the other half of this shoe off, like so. And if a spring comes up and hits me in the face, then you guys can all laugh about it. But it certainly would appear that both springs are still attached, which is good news. That's off. One shoe is over the hub. It'd probably be easier to actually just take these fucking things off, really, wouldn't it? Rather than struggling with one hand, as I'd love to do. There we are, that's off now. So I could probably get that spring off there, which is probably either going to have to go back on. Spring. Right, one handbrake shoe. And the other one succumbed to gravity. But it's alright, because I can reach through the floor and pick it up. And there's the other spring. Right, probably works. Right, so that's the offending bit, held onto the back plate with 3 clips, no less. That went in from above. That went in from the bottom, like that. And then that one went over the top of it all. Must be an easier way of securing this fucking thing in. Anyway, this thing is utterly seized up. I don't think that has moved for some time. I'm going to give it a good clean out on the bench. We'll see if we can work out. Sure, we'll be able to get it working again. I don't generally have to buy new things. It's not really my scene. Right, now what we need to do next is get this adjuster out, because if one half is gummed up, then I can pretty much guarantee the other half will be too. What size are they? Funny little things. It's off 2 7/16 nuts on the back there. That doesn't look in too bad an order, but again, I'll take it all apart and check it works. Now, kind of goes without saying for me, but maybe not for you guys, that I've got no idea as to the history of this thing. I don't know what brake pads are in there. There's a lot of very nasty looking dust down there inside the drum, and these fellas have in the past had asbestos in them. Now, I don't know. I really couldn't tell you whether these are asbestos pads or not, but you really don't want to be breathing the dust in. So when you're working with this sort of shit, you just want to avoid blowing anything around. What I'm going to do is spray a load of gunk on this back plate. There's a pretty good chance it's got some contaminant on it, and wash that all off. I'll do the same for the inside of the drum, just being very, very careful not to waft a great shitload of dust up into the air. And exactly the same thing with these two fellas. These are going to get a proper gunking off before I go any further with them. But there we are, 2 bits. Take the bench off, get working. Well, they all come apart. It's all made by Girling. That's the bits that the handbrake activates. That's the adjuster. The adjuster's a piece of piss. This thing, the way this works, this cone, see the cone in there? It's got flat edges on it. That just winds in. Okay, and then you get these 2 chamfered things go onto it. So they go with the chamfer, the pointy end at the top, and the pointy end at the top, and then as you wind it in, it pushes the shoe out. Okay, so that's easy. This one is a little bit more complicated. It did take a little while to get it all apart, actually, because it was all a bit gummed up. But basically, very similar to that, you've got these fellas need to go in. They go in. Do they go in that way around? They go in that way around. No, they don't. Hang about. Book says, Bookie McBookface says, the lowest edge, because they've got a ramp on them. Yeah, Rampy McRampface. Ramp goes away from the rod. So they go in that way around. Ramp, pointing downhill, goes in that way around. Okay. And I'll just drop that in there now, you see. In fact, look, there's a shampoo bit at the top there. I wonder if that helps you as well. Right, and then on the ramp goes this little roller. And what then happens is, when this goes in here, this fella, and I can't remember which way up it went, so I'm going to have to consult with the book. That literally just pushes in and out. In and out, in and out. Springs on the shoes allow it to do something. Pull it back, I guess. And then it pushes the shoe out. So when you're pulling the handbrake out, it will draw that out, I think. I need to double check on the mechanism. There's so many bloody levers and things. But it wasn't moving at all, and you can see now that that is moving quite happily. So it's going to need a bit of lube in there, I think, and I shall reassemble it and put this nice big hearty good spring back over the top, which also cleaned up. These are the springs that hold the two shoes together. And I've also given the shoes a darn good clean, and also all of the drum and the back plates all been cleaned off as well, so it reduces the risk of contamination, doesn't it? There you go. It's 25 to 7. It's actually starting to cool down here. Right, it's done that. Piece of piss, actually. If I pull the lever out, you see these fellas come out as well. Ready? That's what does it. And obviously the action from these springs pushes them back. I think that's done that. Now I need to work out which way around this fucker goes. I'm going to consult some diagrams, I think. Where are we? Okay, it comes out and then goes away. So goes that way around, which I think will work. Maybe I need to put the spring on the other way around so that the main springs for the car. No, see, I've done that wrong. You see, I've already done it wrong. It's that way around. Looking at the picture here, comes out, going straight, and then bends outwards. So that's the right way around. Cushy. We've been getting sweary with this thing. Right, okay, the problem I've got is that these spring ends keep popping out of these shoes every time I try and lever it over the top of the hub, which exists on the back here. The second problem I've got is the nice big gap you can see there exists on the adjuster side, but not on the mechanism side. So I've had to take the mechanism side out. More swearing. I love taking things apart after I put them together. Then I've just used a self-tapper to slightly hold the spring inside the shoe. What do you reckon? Will it work? Will it work? I'm sure many, many, many other people. It's a ridiculous fucking design. Why do they not have normal springs that go over the outside of the shoes like every other fucking application of brake drums I have ever seen in my entire life? Rant over. Right. And again. So that side needs to go against the adjuster. So I'm referring to this diagram here. You've got the leading and the trailing edge of the handbrake shoes. Ah, bloody thing. I wonder if this is why the brakes were seizing as well, because the mechanism was so gummed up. Because I just reversed it out just now and there was no squeak or anything from any of the brakes. So I suspect it was this bloody handbrake drum that was seized up. Buggers are back. Yeah, right, it worked. It did. It did. Shoes are on. You can see the screws are still in there, but I've got access to them now, so I can just undo those screws. and release the springs. And what's more, when I yank on the lever now, it does something. Yeah, which it wasn't before, but it is now. Moving forwards, slowly but surely. Right, so where are we? Drums on. Beautiful, all rotates nicely. I've wound the adjuster on the back. If you haven't got one, you really need to get one of these square-ended brake adjusting tools. You can probably pick them up for pennies on eBay. I don't know. Other places are available, but it makes life so much easier. You start using adjustable spanners on those square plugs, and you just round them off, making your life difficult. So next thing up is to sort out all of the components. So what have we got here? We've got the relay. I've used the old plug in the relay, put a nice big circlip on the back of it. I can work towards it having no thread just by putting a big spacer between it and the plate where it mounts onto. I've got a different issue with the plate. I'll come back to that in a second. On this piece here, you can see where the thread... So this piece goes through the handbrake itself, and the idea is when you pull the handbrake up, it pulls this thing up. And you can see where it's been sitting for quite a long time. It's just worn completely through. It could well be now that when I've adjusted this all up and put the spring on it, because the spring is completely absent, when I put the spring on it, that I might need to just put a spacer, above it, and then the nut above that, because I've got a good thread down to about there. So that should be okay. This fork here is the one that goes on the back of the drum. It's not particularly beautiful, but it does the job. It's quite strong. There's no way it's that going to move. And at the moment, I'm just using nuts and bolts as clevis pins, which is fine. It works. I've got new bits of these on order, but I need to get this car up and running so Dad can actually use the damn thing. So let's assemble, putting that bit onto the back of the drum, sorting out all the problem I've got with the relay. Let's go on the other side. The problem I've got with the relay mount is at some point when the mechanism all seized up, you can see the back end of the drum down there, it's bent the bracket on the chassis, and I suspect that's as a direct result of it all gumming itself up. So I'll see if I can use the top hole. If I can't use the top hole, I'll have to use the bottom hole, but straighten them out. Right, so that's that. We'll have this handbrake working today. Oh, look at the way that door closes. Slightly noisier. Right, that's bent that back to straight again. I just put the open-ended jaws of a large spanner through the hole and was able to manipulate it back into shape. It's fairly soft steel down there, so there's probably not a lot I'm going to be able to do about it further warping, but I fully suspect that it warped in the first place because this drum here was doing nothing, and now at least I can move it in and out. Okay, right, so let's get the mechanism together. So linkage is all in now. See it moving nicely, which it wasn't before. It wasn't doing anything at all. All it had done really is it had torn out the relay there because the other lever wasn't working. So I've adjusted it on the top up here, so you can just about see the lock nuts. There's enough up there, and it would appear to lock the drum solid nicely. So you know what that needs now. Let's see if it stalls it with the handbrake on. As it ought to. Oh, cold start of a 1968 Land Rover petrol 2 1/4. Neutral. There we go. Right, handbrake on. What comes on nice and firm. Right. I'd say that handbrake's working. Start him again. Reverse. Handbrake on. I'll just put him on like that. Yeah, he ain't gonna go. Right, let's tighten up the lock nuts, and then we'll just, actually no, before I do that, I probably just want to, I mean it's turning nicely, I probably could do with just driving it back and forth and just making sure that the shoes are central with 2 clicks on. 1, 2, no, back 1, forward 1. 1 click in it now. Right, let's have a quick drive back and forth. There you are, that's done. Cost 1 split pin. Cost was 1 split pin and probably a egg cup full of gunk and about 2 hours of my time, which I think seems fairly cost effective. I've ordered a load of bits. I don't know what's happening with the screen there for a second. Yeah, I've ordered a load of bits which I wanted to put on it just in case, but as it turned out, didn't need them. There we are. That's gearbox all nicely. Why is that not going in? I've got the wrong way around. Got the wrong way around. Silly arse. He's in. Cost pennies plus 2 hours of labour. That is how you fix a non-functioning Land Rover Series Handbrake. I put my special spanner in my box of special tools. My box of special tools. Yeah, it's done that. Right, I've got more jobs to do on it now though. Hope you enjoyed that. Bit of a laugh, wasn't it? Well, at least you know how to do a Series Handbrake now. Some of them are cross beams, some don't. But that was it. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down. If you've got comments, ask in the comments. I don't bite. Thank you.